Welcome to Inside the Lines, presented by BetMGM, joined by Nick Bonaddio and Aaron Schatz. I'm Olivia Harlan Dekker. Let's start with what some consider the most important position in all of sports, quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa is still the favorite to lead the league in passing yards, but he has some stiff competition after his odds dropped 75% to plus 350. Rookie phenom CJ Stroud, he has the second most passing yards on the season and the second best odds after passing for more than 350 yards in the Texans' win in Cincy. Sam Howell has the fourth best odds, moving up to plus 800, even though his 2,783 passing yards are the most in the league. What a world we live in that we're talking about Sam Howell, the most passing yards. Justin Herbert and Josh Allen both had their odds drop, and they sit at plus 900. Nick, which quarterback are you betting on to lead the league in passing yards?
Yeah, if you're asking me what's most likely, I'd probably cast my vote for Tua or Mahomes. But for the value presented, I think I'd go with Dak here. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that passing yards is mostly a function of attempts. And Dak's attempts over the past 2 weeks are 35 and 44. I think when you factor in the talent around him and then factor in the upcoming games against pass funnel defenses and the Eagles and Bills and Commanders twice, I think getting a very highly efficient Dak at 17-1 is a really good EV play. And actually gives you a lot of surface here to hedge off of it with player props against him. So I'm a big fan of Dak in this spot.
Aaron, which quarterback are you putting your money on?
I'm going somewhat similarly in that I do think that the answer at the end is going to be Mahomes, maybe Tua, probably Mahomes, but I like the odds for Jared Goff at plus 1,200. So if you look at the remaining schedule based on the pass defense DVOA of opponents, the Kansas City Chiefs and Detroit Lions are tied with the 26th ranked schedule of opposing pass defenses. So things are going to get easier for both Mahomes and Goff. So I like Mahomes to do it, but as far as odds go, I like Goff at plus 1,200 to give you better EV.
For sure. Great value there. Okay, let's head over to coaches as we stick in the futures market. Lions head coach Dan Campbell, he opened as the favorite, and that's still the case. His odds improved 25% after their game-winning field goal in LA over the Chargers. We mentioned CJ Stroud and the Texans' big win in Cincinnati. Well, that moved DeMeco Ryans' odds up 50% to plus 300. Mike McDaniel, he didn't get to show off his high-powered offense this week with their bye week, or really in Germany the week before, and his odds have dropped to plus 600. Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings have won back-to-back games, improving his odds over 50% to plus 1,000. That's after losing Kirk Cousins and superstar wide receiver Justin Jefferson, although he's trending in the right direction and should come back soon. So Aaron, do you like O'Connell and Minnesota to keep it up, or are you going elsewhere?
I do think DeMeco Ryans is your best bet for Coach of the Year. The fact is that we tend to give this award to the coach who has most outperformed the team's expectations on the season, and there's no question that the team that has most outperformed expectations is the Houston Texans. Not just CJ Stroud, but an improved defense, and that is Ryans' side of the ball. So between locker room management and defensive improvement, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to give a lot of credit to Ryans. DeMeco Ryans at plus 300. That is my choice.
Okay, I like that one. Nick, which coach are you backing?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron here. Sorry to be, not as interesting with my pick, but, I am a little bit surprised that Mike Tomlin doesn't have like slightly lower odds given sort of what he's gotten out of that team. But yeah, the pick here has to be DeMeco Ryans. The Texans opened at a win total of 6.5 to start the season, and they're going to be over that with probably a month to spare. The offense, everyone's talked about that with what they've gotten out of CJ Stroud. The defense is improving. Will Anderson is improving week over week. So really, this is a DeMeco Ryan, such a great spot for him. And to Aaron's point, no one expected much out of the Texans this year, and here they are pushing 10, maybe 11 wins. Another way to look at this bet is really a bet against the Lions, because I think, between Ryans and Campbell, those are your two favorites here. So placing some equity chips down on Ryans is actually making a bet against the Lions and allows you to do some correlations and hedge bets moving forward. So for some of our more thinking bets, it's a pretty interesting place to play some long-term hedge games with a equity position in the Texans.
For sure. That's getting a little bit more complicated, but I'm with you. I'm following. All right, let's look at the not so distant future. Let's focus in on week 11 and discuss who the public is betting on. It's my favorite segment. It's called Fade the Public. The potential Super Bowl preview between the Eagles and Chiefs on Monday night is getting a lot of early action. That one we saw coming. The total opened at 48.5, but it's dropped 3 points to 45.5 after 73% of the early bets came in on the under, with over 90% of the early money on the under as well. Nick, are you fading the public in this spot?
Yeah, like I'm a little bit surprised this game is steaming towards the under, given that these teams are so public. But given the combination of fading the Eagles' pass defense, I'm always going to be interested in that spot. Taylor Swift, no Taylor Swift, doesn't matter. This game sets up for each team's best offensive unit for success. You've got Mahomes and KC against the ninth worst pass defense in terms of expected points, and then you've got DeAndre Swift and the Eagles' rush offense going against the 8th worst rush defense. Unless there's a injury or weather concerns, I think you can give me the over here and maybe even some alt overs with some plus money while we're at it.
So, Aaron, what do you think? Do you think the public's right here?
I'm going to fade the public and go with over 45.5. Kansas City is 6th in offensive DVOA so far this year. Philadelphia is 7th, so these are both strong offenses. And both of these teams are better in situation neutral pace than in total pace. They're slower overall because they tend to have large leads late in games and they slow it down. That's probably not going to happen in this game. This is going to be close, so the teams are going to be going faster and running more plays, and that leads to an over.
Okay, that'll be a great game. A lot of fodder for that one. Let's check out another one that the public is loving, but with an even bigger split. It's the Cowboys, America's team. They traveled to Carolina where the total opened at 41.5, and it's only moved up half a point, even though 90% of early bets are on the over. The Cowboys have hit their stride on offense, resulting in 3 straight overs, but the Panthers have hit the under in 3 consecutive games. Aaron, are you fading the public here?
I am, in fact, fading the public here, and I'm going with under 42. Dallas is below average when it comes to pace. Carolina is average. Carolina is 31st in offensive DVOA this year. If only for the Giants, they would be the worst offense in the league. And Dallas, despite those strong wins against the Giants, jumping them up, are still only 10th in offensive DVOA. So I do see this game as more likely to go under, and I like the under 42.
All right, Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a no bet for me. Like, I certainly agree with Aaron's logic, and certainly I think that the Panthers are going to have a difficult time moving the ball against the Cowboys. There's just too much variance in the Cowboys in terms of how they can play in this game for me to have this modeled as anything other than a no bet.
All right, well, maybe I can convince you on this next part because we're going to look at some trends with this game. So we'll continue with our Week 11 discussion. It is one of the 3 games this week with double-digit spreads, so you got to have some fun betting these ones. Favorites have dominated games with spreads this high, going 8-3 against the spread this season. That's over 70%. Week 6 was the last time we had 3 games with this many lopsided spreads, and the favorites covered in 2 of them, one of which was the Dolphins covering as 14-point favorites against the Panthers. So, Nick, which big favorite is covering? Are you still going by Carolina or still staying away from it?
I'm staying away from all of it. Sorry to be the downer in the room. Some of these games do model out to be slight plus EV for me, but not enough for me to really feel confident putting any money down. These are very high numbers, and trends from this year aside, over a longer aperture, over multiple years, these trends generally wash out. And so, in lieu of that, I need to look at these games outside of that context for who these teams actually are. And for who these teams actually are, I see 3 fairly efficient lines. So for me, this is a pass.
Okay, Aaron, which favorite keeps this trend going?
I agree with Nick that these lines are very efficient, but if you're asking me of these favorites, which is the one most likely to cover, I do like the Dallas Cowboys minus 10.5 against the Carolina Panthers. Cowboys are up to 5th in overall DVOA. That defense is really strong, and like I said, the Panthers offense is terrible. They're 31st overall, including 31st on offense. So of these lines, I think the favorite most likely to cover is Dallas.
Man, you're making me change my blue chip bet. I was going to go in the opposite direction. All right, let's look at another trend that is one-sided for sure. These spreads aren't lopsided, but the matchups have been in each of these divisional games. The Rams have absolutely dominated their last 10 meetings against the Seahawks, covering the spread in 9 of them. They're a 1-point underdog this weekend. Steelers and Titans both have covered in 7 of their last 10 games against their opponent this week. Aaron, which one of these teams continues their dominating ways and covers?
I'm going with the Steelers. This is a really bad matchup for rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson at quarterback. The Steelers' defense has been much stronger blitzing than without a blitz this year, and they are likely to blitz the rookie. In addition, the Steelers' defense ranks first in DVOA on short passes, but 20th on deep passes. But DTR is not the guy to take advantage of that. If you look at the scouting reports when he came out last year, they said he's not good on deep passes. So he's not going to be able to take advantage of that. Short passes are going to be a problem. So yeah, I will take the Steelers over the Browns.
Okay. Nick, are you backing your Steelers here or going in another direction?
I mean, of course I am. I mean, I can't avoid the homer bet. Of course I'm taking the Steelers. So even without Deshaun Watson being out, I think I'd be leaning the Steelers. But to Aaron's point, with DTR in, I like it even more, and I'd consider it on an alt spread perspective all the way to Steelers -3.5 to 4. The highest leverage event here in historical matchups is the away team, in this case the Steelers, turning the ball over more than twice, something that Kenny Pickett, for all of his warts, hasn't done all year. As long as the Steelers don't give this game away, to Aaron's point, that all the matchup factors point to the Steelers, and I really like them in this spot.
All right, let's look to our primetime games for primetime props. We're going to share our favorite prop from either the Sunday night game or the Monday night game. Nick, are you going to Vikings Broncos or Eagles Chiefs?
I'm going Eagles Chiefs. It's such a great game and a lot of spots to attack. I'm attacking DeAndre Swift over 58.5 rushing yards. I make this line closer to 65 to 66, so there's a lot of really nice value on that line. Swift has gotten at least 14 carries 7 out of the last 8 weeks, so as long as he's at least moderately efficient against KC's rush defense, which is notably worse than their pass defense, he'll be able to cover this with a lot of room to spare. I really like this, and it's one of my favorite bets of the week.
I like that one a lot. Aaron, which prop are you watching in prime time?
I'm also going with Chiefs and Eagles, and I'm going with the Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. The Eagles are dead last in DVOA against tight ends. That is not a good weakness to have against the Chiefs. Travis Kelce looking to score. And don't forget, if you believe in such things, this is apparently the game where the Kelce parents and the Taylor Swift parents are going to meet each other. So he's going to try to make that score happen. So yeah, what it really is about is the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense is the more important part. Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown.
I like it. He's due for a good game. He's coming off of two tough ones. Okay, before we wrap up the episode, we're giving you our blue chip bets, aka our best bets. Anything we love, spread, money line, total, prop, whatever you want. Nick, what is your blue chip bet?
Normally I'm looking at hockey and D3 lacrosse and all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'm going to keep it nice and normal here and just do good old Division I college football. I'm taking Duke -4 at Virginia. So the bloom is off the Blue Devils as an ACC dark horse, but they're far and away the better team in this matchup. So only getting 4 going into the least intimidating college football environment possible feels like an overreaction. This is the same Virginia team that got blown out by 4 touchdowns at home to Georgia Tech, whereas Duke's losses have been all to top 25 opponents. I look for Duke to finish the season with 2 pastes of bottom feeders, Virginia and Pitt, and go into the bowl season riding high. I take this all the way to the other side of 7, taking a lot of plus money on the alts at 6.5, 7, 7.5.
Okay, love a good college football bet. Aaron, what's your blue chip bet for the people?
Well, I'm never talking about hockey and I'm never talking about lacrosse. So let's talk about the National Football League. I know that I just went off on how Dorian Thompson-Robinson is really bad matchup against the Steelers defense. And yet, despite that, and despite the Browns defense being the best in the league this year, I'm going to go over 33.5 on the Steelers-Browns game because that is a really, really low number. It is really hard to hit numbers that low. Offense is more predictive than defense when it comes to things like over-under totals, and there's a good chance for things like interceptions returned for touchdowns in this game, or fumbles returned for touchdowns, or turnovers that lead to very good field position where you have a short field touchdown. So I do like the over 33.5 in Steelers and Browns, despite the fact that these are both teams that are much stronger on defense than on offense.
Aaron, you are good for the inside scoop, the Kelsey Swift parents meeting, and staying far away from lacrosse, hockey, anything else. We appreciate both of your insight, guys. A lot of fun this week. Thanks for watching Inside the Lines. We'll be back every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you next week.